morning. My name is Michael Potter. I'm the Horticulture Extension Agent here in Montgomery County. Today we're going to talk to you about some of the fruit trees that we've had just recently in our plant sale and what you can do as a homeowner at home to do trimming. And I'm going to first talk about year one when you do plant a fruit tree. It's number one, it's very important to have fruit trees in a very well-drained soil. You don't want water-logged root systems, so you want to make sure that if you have like a clay soil or something like that, that you build a mound at least about 18 inches tall to place that tree on, so it'll have a good ability to spread some roots down in some drier soil rather than a wet soil. Fruit trees don't like wet feet. So one of the things we'll start with today is the peach tree that we do have here. Most of the time when you get a peach tree now, they're going to be in pots. We like to plant them typically when they are dormant. That is the best time because they can really establish in a new soil that they're going to be in quite quickly in that time frame. So one of the things a lot of people kind of don't like is when they have to cut them. They think that, oh no, you shouldn't cut a peach tree. Peach trees actually do need to be cut. They are what we call an open center tree. So if you think kind of like a bowl. We used to take one of the blow-up balls that you can sit on at home, and we used to make sure that it was an open center by placing that ball in the center of the tree, especially with established trees. But here we have, a tree that's maybe about 3-4 years old. It's about, 42, 45 inches tall. We want to make sure that this tree branches out properly, number one, so we can get good airflow, good sunlight down into the tree. And so by doing that, what we need to do is we need to kind of look at each of the buds on this tree. And luckily, some of these trees that are small like this have some branch work already attached to them. They're already kind of branching out. And so we can look at them from a standpoint of how these branches are going to grow. So first thing we can kind of do too is we can look kind of towards the bottom. All these trees are typically a grafted type tree. And you can see right there, you've got the main top scion and then you got the rootstock on the bottom. And you have some little buds that have decided to grow some leaves. Well, these are not going to be needed. So what we need to do is pull these off. I just typically take them, pinch them with my fingers and just kind of pull them off. We don't want the rootstock to develop any branch work because the fruit will not be harvestable. And so we can kind of do the same thing moving on up the tree to the extent of where we're going to cut. I kind of like the way this tree is already formed. We can see I'm still kind of picking off some of the buds that are there. I like the fact that we have multiple branch work here. One of the things, and I always tell people, you need some pruners, you need like a little rag, and you need some rubbing alcohol. You can also use like a Clorox solution, like a 10% solution of Clorox to clean your pruners. Make sure your pruners are clean. That way we're not transferring any disease from one plant to another, especially when we're trimming multiple plants. So I'm kind of liking the fact that this one has some good branch work, like I said.
Is that something like if I'm at the store and I'm buying a new peach tree I should look for? Yeah,
in fact, that's a very good thing to do. I always, anytime I pick up a plant, I always kind of make that deal where if I'm going to get hibiscus, I want the one that has 3 hibiscuses in it. So that way I get my money's worth. But I always kind of look for things that are, and it's kind of like plant judging 101, something that's going to be full. A lot of times what we used to get were bare root trees that were 5 and 6 and 7 foot tall. And what you typically trim them about halfway. You want about 36 inches up off the ground before that branch work starts. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we're picking a tree that maybe has some good fullness to it. I can see that this tree, it's pretty good as far as I'm concerned. Since it's going to be an open center tree, I don't know if I want really competing, like let's say if I let this one go, it's going to go in this direction, okay? As that branch grows, it'll go in this direction. It might start competing with this one, okay? So I'm kind of looking like, okay, there's enough gap here maybe that will allow for good airflow if I leave it up here. And so, like I said, I kind of like the fact that this is about 26, 28 inches tall off the ground. That allows me to push them over up underneath it and weed eat and get underneath the tree if need be. I don't like branches. Sometimes you'll pick a tree that'll have branches that may be a little broken or tattered.
Okay.
So this one does. So I'm just going to go ahead and nip this one off because it's not going to be anything. So now what I can do is say, okay, now I've got this gap here. So I'm going to look at the buds on this, and I'm going to say, if I cut above this bud, and of course you want to cut like at a 45-degree angle, if I cut above this bud, the next year, will this bud grow and fill in this area? So I think that's a chance that I'm willing to take. Let's see, this one right here, this bud right here is good. If it goes that direction, it goes in between those two. So that's good for me. I like that.
So alternating.
Alternating.
Okay.
Yeah, a little, you want some good, and you just kind of have to use some forethought and say, okay, is this branch going to grow this direction? If it does, it's going to be there, because you can always cut it off later or trim it up later to get it to where you want it to grow. But for this one, I'm looking at this bud here. I'm going to kind of evaluate too. Do I want to go a little higher, maybe have a higher branch work, or do I want to go ahead and come down here? I think for me, I'm going to see if this bud right here will develop and fill in this area, because it tends to be going in that direction. I'm going to see if it's going to fill in this next year. So I'm going to cut it that 45-degree. People say, oh my God, you killed my tree. No, we didn't kill it. We're causing this to be the open center of the tree. This will be where that tree branches out. And these branches should still grow up at that 45-degree angle. And then that tree grows and develops, you'll still have that open center. So right now I've got this one that'll fill in this direction. And then hopefully with the next season, or even this season, this bud may decide to go ahead and grow off in this direction. And one of the reasons why we make a 45-degree cut on it is we don't want water sitting on those areas. The more water that sits on there, the more times you have problems with disease or even rot and stuff like that, especially if it's flat and holds that moisture. So this is kind of the way we would trim up a 1-year-old planting tree, something we just recently planted. And it'll grow, develop, and then we can just, as we go along, and it grows, we need to make sure that we're not having any branches that are crossing or branches that are growing straight up in the middle. We want to trim those as that tree grows and develops.
So what are open center trees? What are the other kinds that we might see here?
Plums, peaches are the most open center trees that we have here. Okay. All right. So we can move on from this one. I think that one's pretty good. Like I said, hopefully that bud will develop, and we'll kind of watch it as it goes. The first couple of years of this tree, what we want it to do is we want it to focus, and this goes with all fruit trees that are newly planted, we want it to focus on root system and root growth. So we want to make sure that they're not producing. So whenever they do have like a bud or even a fruit that starts to develop, we want to make sure that they are pulled off.
Okay.
And that way it focuses more energy on root production.
Okay.
Here we have what we call a central leader tree. This is an apple tree, a Dorset apple tree. And so with a central leaders, what you're wanting is a straight up tree, one that has a central branch that goes all the way up. This one's kind of a little bit more difficult to evaluate from a standpoint, just because—
I picked a challenge for you.
Yeah, you picked a challenging one. So we've got one branch here that may help as far as development, or one bud, I should say, help us development here. I like the fact that this one here, I could trim it up higher if I wanted to and not have that, but I think I'm going to leave that because it may fill in this portion of the tree and that will fill in this portion of the tree. So then we get into the fact of, okay, central leader. So there is always a dominant branch work that is there. This one right here has two coming off the main. This one is the more dominant one. It's much larger than the other one. So if we want to continue that, I think in this case, what we would do is probably trim off a portion of this tree, of this branch work on this side, just to allow for it to branch out rather than going up and competing with the central leader. As a tree grows and develops, it will straighten a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. And like as it becomes more dominant, it'll straighten. So I'm okay with this tree as far as, like I said, leaving this bud here. That'll have some branch work that'll come out this direction, and then this one over here. With central leader trees, what we want is airflow through the tree. So your pears, your apples are two of those types of trees that we need that branch work like that. And the reason why is get the airflow through the tree and reduce the incidence of any kind of fungal or disease issues like fire blight is one of the things that we want to reduce. So for this one, I kind of like I said, I kind of like the way it is. If I want to create some branching or help fill in different areas, I might do some trimming. And I always look at buds. Buds indicate where they're going to possibly sprout when you cut them, where they're going to grow towards. So I always look at the buds and kind of say, okay, where's this one going to go if it starts to become a branch? So for this one, kind of hesitant to cut just because of this right here. It looks like either the branch was broken off, the main branch was broken off in the center, but I think that this will become the main branch work. So I'm not too worried about right now. This one's kind of more upright. I don't particularly care for that because it's too upright. It needs to be more of an angle like this.
Okay, to get it out of the way of the leader?
That way this one takes over. And the key is going to be, as this tree grows and develops, these buds we'll need to let some of these buds grow so they can have branch work that comes out in this direction.
What about an inward bud? Are we getting rid of inward buds?
Anything that's inward is a problem because then you have branch crossing.
Oh, okay.
And the more you have on the interior, the less airflow you're going to have through there. So I think too, I think in some cases what you have to do is you kind of have to wait and see attitude with trees. I'm okay with just planting this tree like it is and letting it go for another year and then reevaluating and saying, okay, do I have my central leader? Do I have good airflow and scaffolding? I think with this one in particular, this one will probably I'll probably end up cutting it off, somewhere in this neighborhood, probably in the next year. Okay. But I do want to evaluate it for another year before I do any major cutting on this one in particular. Because if I end up cutting up here, then I'm going to have branch work going in different directions. And it's funny, the more I look at trees sometimes, the more I say, you know what, I think I might as well go ahead and do this. So I like where that bud is right there. I think that this bud will help as far as filling in this portion of the tree. And like I said, and later on as the tree grows and matures, you'll be able to make some cuts as it grows. So that's for your central leaders.
So apples and pears.
Apples and pears.
So we get questions on citrus and avocado. So I brought you a couple of those too.
Yeah. So let's tell you what, let's go and start with the one that probably have the most questions on is always citrus.
Yes.
Citrus is one of those also that is a grafted tree. You can always see that. They typically have like that curve and you kind of a hump sometimes. So this one, they let it grow up, the rootstock, and then they graft a top producing citrus on top of it. Citrus really don't need to be trimmed. It's one of those things where diseased, dead wood, those are the things that you really trim out of a tree, any time of year, especially, comes to all the fruit trees and your other trees. So you can trim it about any time. Now, sometimes you want to keep it a certain shape or you may want to keep it a certain height, and that's okay. If I want a tree that's, 10 foot tall, then I can do some trimming on that tree to keep it at that height. But citrus is one of those you don't have to do any major trimming unless, like I said, anything that grows up beyond or below that graft, you want to make sure you remove those because those are the rootstock and they're not edible. And if you ever tried to eat one of those, it would be quite sour. So we're trying to produce here. This one's a Rio Red grapefruit. It's one of the ones that, you can put in a pot or you can put it in the ground. Just make sure you cover it completely during the winter time. Whenever you cover any kind of citrus tree, you want to make sure that covering goes all the way to the ground. Some people will put like string lights and not LED lights because they don't get hot enough, but string lights inside or in some kind of heat lamp or something. But it always is sealed around the ground. Your ground is, when it's moist, lets off heat, and so it'll protect it. Another method for protecting your citrus trees is to take mulch, and especially in hard freezes, you cover the tree too. But you can take mulch and pile it up all the way up the top of the, as high as you can get it up the tree. That mulch insulates that main stem. And as soon as, like the next day, if it goes above freezing or whatever, you want to remove it because you don't want wetness all the way up that tree. So that'll help protect at least, let's just say we have a big freeze like we did in 2020, where all the trees basically perished. Well, if you insulated that, and it would still allow for some of these lower bud work to regrow.
Okay. But if it freezes past that graph point, we're kind of done.
Yeah, as soon as it freezes and it goes all the way down here, you're done, because next thing you have sour oranges.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, not a lot of trimming is needed. We always recommend, the first couple of years, especially with citrus or any of the fruit trees, go ahead and remove the fruit that's developing off of them. We want them to focus on the root system. It's okay after like year 2 or something to let one grow or something like that. I said, yeah, it's okay.
I get so impatient.
Yeah, we get impatient. But one of the things, so with peach trees and citrus trees, they're kind of alternate bearing type trees, which means they'll have a good year and a bad year. So in order to equalize that and make a more steady production, we want to remove at least 50% of the fruit that develops.
Okay.
Okay. So I always say when the fruit develops and is about thumb size, that's when you kind of pick them off. With peaches, sometimes we'll get 2 fruit that develop side by side. Pick one of those off. Okay. You want about 8 inches in between each developing fruit. So let's just say, this was a longer branch. So every 8 inches, I would have a fruit. You don't want fruit that's too close together. Okay. By reducing the population, number one, you're basically increasing fruit quality and fruit size. Okay. Number 2. Okay. So yeah, citrus trees really don't need to be cut that much unless you're going to just kind of keep them at a certain height.
We get a lot of questions on, can we do avocados here?
Yeah, avocados. So yeah, that's I've seen avocados in tropical environments and everything else. So these are also kind of a central leader type tree. You kind of want to let them grow. They'll branch out, of course, as usual. One of the things about citrus, though, is that it has to develop.
Avocado.
One of the things about avocados is it has to develop a hardened off trunk. So when you start to actually see the pattern of bark and everything on that trunk, that's when they can be planted in the ground. So a lot of times this tree may take 3 or 4 years before you can actually plant them. And when they get that bark on them, that's when they're more protected from freeze or cold weather. A lot of people choose to just kind of take them from originally, out of the pot, plant them in a much bigger pot and leave them there for a couple of years.
But you got to cover them and drag them in and out and whatever.
Yes, you got to. Yeah, you got to baby them for a couple of years. They're going to be real tender. They're a tropical tree, even though they're grafted to rootstock that can kind of help with some of the cold tolerance. But yeah, most of the time, what we just want to do is we want to protect the tree for the first couple of years, let it start to get an actual bark on it before you plant it.
Okay.
Okay.
Any problem with that guy being kind of floppy?
Nah,
it'll straighten up.
Yeah, it'll straighten up over time. Just remember, they don't like full sun in tropical environments. They like a little afternoon shade. So that was one of the things.
That's different.
Mm-hmm, yeah, when I lived in Hawaii, that was one of the things that on the mountain in the afternoons, the clouds would build up and would shade the trees out in the afternoon. So they don't like really full sun. You'll start to get sunburn on them, on the leaves and things of that nature. But any of these trees, like I said, the first couple of years, just gotta kind of get them ready to be producing. Okay. Okay.
So some patience.
Yep.
Evaluating the buds.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Yep.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment. Yes, it is.
But it can be rewarding, I guess.
Yeah, and then of course Mother Nature always has control over our weather. So sometimes it's whether or not you're going to get fruit.
Right. Oh, yes, because don't some of these have like chill hours and things?
Yeah,
We'll
it's
have
chill
to,
hour requirements. So
we'll
in
have to
fact,
do a post about where to find chill hours
Yeah.
because I didn't know about that until
Yeah.
you came here too.
yep. So that's it.
All right. We appreciate it, Michael.
Thank you.